morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Debbie Menezes, and I'm the chair of the Technical Evaluation Reference Group of the Adaptation Fund, which we call the AF-TERG, and I will be serving as your moderator today. I'd really like to warmly welcome all of you to the Climate Finance Evidence Series. This is an initiative that's been spearheaded by the evaluation units of the 4 climate funds as part of our ongoing collaboration and knowledge sharing. And the aim of this series is to explore key climate finance topics that arise from our evaluative work, which is aimed at enhancing the impact of climate finance. The topic for today's webinar is the use of artificial intelligence in climate change evaluations. As we know, climate change is a pressing and a global challenge, a complex one at that. And all 4 evaluations working together to bring critical insights on how to program resources better, to understand what's working, what's not, in what conditions, etc. We're also witnessing an explosive growth of artificial intelligence almost across all spheres of the economy. Today's discussion will explore issues on how AI is manifesting and influencing climate change evaluations. Will it augment our intelligence, or are the risks too high? How should human intelligence interact with artificial intelligence? I am joined today by representatives from the evaluation units of the 4 climate funds to reflect on a study that we jointly conducted on this very topic. It's my privilege to introduce an eminent panel of Anupam Anand, who's the Senior Evaluation Officer at the Independent Evaluation Office of the Global Environment Facility, the GEF, Martin Prowse, who's the Evaluation Specialist at the Independent Evaluation Unit of the Green Climate Fund, Mike Ward, who's leading the evaluation and learning at the Climate Investment Funds, and Vladislav Arnaudov, who's the Secretariat Coordinator and Senior Evaluation Officer at the Adaptation Fund's Technical Evaluation Reference Group. So today, the run of the show is this. We're going to start with a short presentation of the results of a recent scoping study on the use of artificial intelligence in climate change evaluations. Vlad's going to deliver this, and just to remind us, this is something that the 4 funds have jointly done. This is going to be followed by a panel discussion to discuss opportunities and challenges in the application of artificial intelligence, and we'll leave a few minutes at the end for question and answers. So in the meantime, I would request you, please do introduce yourself in the chat. I think there's a chat function. And one other request, we would like to use this opportunity to crowdsource your ideas, and you could put this in the chat. How can this work be moved forward? Or indeed, if you have any other reflections that you may have on this topic. So without further ado, I would like to invite Vladislav Arnaudov. Vlad, it would be great if you could just present to us the findings from the scoping study that we've done. Thank you. Over to you, Vlad.
Thank you, Debbie. Thank you for the introduction, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of our attendees today. Thank you for joining this exciting seminar. So I'm going to share my slides now, and over the next 20 to 25 minutes, I will talk to you about the results of the scoping study that the 4 funds conducted. So I hope that the slides are visible to all of you now. And I will start with a very brief background of this work. So as Debbie mentioned in her introduction, this is a joint study by the evaluation units of the Adaptation Fund, the GEF, the GCF, and the CIFs, the Climate Investment Funds. And the study, or the original part of the study, was completed back in September 2024. The reason we started this work was to understand actually what evaluation units can do with AI, especially in the climate change sphere. Explore the potential of AI in evaluations and see what we can do better, what kind of risk exists there, what kind of mitigation strategies exist, and eventually how to integrate the work, AI in the work that we are all doing. So the main objectives were really to assess the AI potential in climate change related evaluation, identify the opportunity, and look into the future AI applications. So what was the methodology of work we did? And the methodology consisted of a literature review. We went through a quite large amount of publications on the use of AI, especially in evaluations. We also had 19 semi-structured interviews. These were mainly with other UN agencies, uh, players in the climate finance space, so that we could see uh, what their views on the use of AI is, what their experience has been up to now. And we also conducted an online survey for which we had 32 respondents. Um, the work was conducted by an outside consultant that was hired by the 4 evaluation units, Eleanor Bajraktari. He did a great job, and what we are going to present here as a result of this study was uh, a result of his work over more than 3 months. But before I move forward, I want to provide a cautionary note that AI is a very broad term with diverse tools and methods. And the findings that we provide here, they're time sensitive. So as I said, the original study was completed in September 2024. So many things have changed since then. So if you see that maybe some of the information is not up to date, just keep in mind when this study was conducted. But also today, we want to get from you, as Debbie mentioned, some inputs on what we can do next so that we also keep up to date with the evolution of AI. And one thing that I'm going to repeat over and over in the presentation today, and I think you hear about this more even in the discussion, the panel discussion after that, is that the use of AI still requires ongoing supervision and also adaptation to the needs of the different organizations. So let's keep that in mind while we move forward through this presentation. So there are going to be 3 parts of the presentation. First, I'll talk about the potential application of AI in program evaluation. Then I'll talk about risks and strategies. And finally, I'm going to talk about what the 4 funds can do in the use of AI. So when we talk about the application of AI in climate change evaluations, we can look at the different stages of the evaluation process where we can apply artificial intelligence. So we can apply it in the design, in the implementation, as part of the quality control, and finally uh, in the use and dissemination phase. So let's see what applications of AI have been identified as part of the study during the design phase. And what we learn is that from the interviews, from the surveys, from the literature review as well, is that AI can be quite powerful in the synthesis of existing evidence and knowledge. And I think we have a lot of examples of this happening already. AI can help us with the methodological support, can help us with stakeholder analysis and engagement, and also can help with risk assessment and resource allocation. So if we dive deeper into the synthesis of existing evidence and knowledge, we can see some successful examples of AI providing comprehensive literature review. Um, AI is capable of rapidly scanning and analyzes vast academic literature. And I think this is very important as we move forward in our evaluative work, because we do that on a daily basis, and using AI can help us do this work faster, better, and more efficiently. And AI can also help us identify key themes, trends, and some knowledge gaps. AI can also be good in identification of best practices like analysis of previous evaluation outcomes. It can look into context-specific insights, and also it can help in trend analysis such as emerging trend or forward-looking assessments and predictions. Now, the next interesting aspect where AI can be helpful in the design phase is the methodological support. And probably some of you, when you hear this statement, you'll say, why? I mean, methodological work is something that humans can do quite well, and probably it has to be led by humans. And I fully agree that this is something that we still, as evaluators, have to lead. but AI can still help our work. And one area is by recommending a methodology based on evaluation questions and context. So sometimes we need to select what is the best approach, what is the best methodology, and AI can give us some suggestions based on what information we feed into it. It can also analyze the strengths and weaknesses of different approaches. Uh, AI is quite good in sample size and power calculation, something we struggle with quite often. It can help with the mixed method design, uh, for example, suggesting optimal combination of qualitative and quantitative methods, and also in the counterfactual design. So a lot of support work related to methodologies can be done by AI, and we saw as part of the survey some good examples of that. Now, AI can also help you with the stakeholder analysis and engagement planning. So it can look into various ways of stakeholder mapping, such as identification of key stakeholders, their relationship, categorization based on influence and interest. And it can also help you with some suggestions on engagement strategy optimization. Uh, for example, that can be done based on stakeholder characteristic, historical engagement data, and tailored approaches for different stakeholder groups. And when you look at the risk assessment and resource allocation, another area where AI use has been seen as quite advantageous, AI can help in the predictive risk analysis, mitigation strategies recommendations, resource optimization, and also timeline optimization. So as you see, AI can be a good friend of every evaluator as part of the design phase. But the use of AI does not finish with the design phase, because you can also look into the use of AI also during implementation. And I'm going to go through 6 different examples of the use of AI during the evaluation implementation phase. So the first is text analysis and coding. So AI has proved to be quite powerful in automatic thematic coding, such as identification and categorization of themes in large volumes of qualitative data, improve efficiency and consistency in coding, analysis of interviews, focus groups, and open-eyed survey responses. I remember seeing a very interesting recent example when there was a webinar, all the seminar, all the participants wrote on pieces of paper their reflections and inputs, and we took a picture of those reflections, and then AI managed quite quickly to analyze what was written on these pieces of paper and come up with some summaries. And this is a very powerful tool that can save a lot of time and energy. With this, AI can also help us with the keyword extraction. It can help us with the sentiment analysis, for example, determining whether the sentiment is be positive, negative, or neutral, and even track changes in attitudes over time. AI is also powerful in data aggregation and monitoring. So it can do automatic data collection, like streamline extraction of data from various sources. It can help with data integration and aggregation, like unification of data from different formats and sources, holistic view of project for pattern and trend identification. We have seen examples also of use of AI, real-time monitoring and analysis, and also in predictive analysis. And these are things that we struggle with when we implement evaluations quite often. Um, Surveys is another thing we uh, do quite often, and AI can also be our friend when surveys are designed and administered. And we have seen cases when AI is capable of providing adaptive questioning, so dynamic adjustment of survey questions based on previous answers, and improve data quality and respondent experience, and also uh, helps with natural language interfaces. And AI is very good in response quality control, such as real-time flagging of inconsistent or unlikely responses, and immediate clarification or validation of responses. And another area where we struggle quite a lot with, especially in climate change evaluations, environmental evaluations as well, is geospatial analysis and analysis of GIS data. And AI has proved quite powerful in satellite image analysis, like tracking changes in land use, vegetation cover, infrastructure development, particularly relevant. This particularly relevant for environmental and climate change related evaluation. So if you want to understand where your reforestation project, for example, or land use change project has being successful or not, geospatial data is very important here, and AI can help you with the analysis of that. And then it can also help with the GIS data integration. So it can be help in the integration of the data in various databases and also comprehensive spatial analysis of project impacts. And one thing that is becoming more and more important is social media and web and analytics. I think a lot of us spend time in front of the computers looking at information on what is available online, and AI can help you actually in mapping and analysis of social networks related to the project and understanding information flow and influence patterns. It can also help you with the web traffic analysis, assessment of reach and engagement of project-related resources, and also insights into the digital impact of the project. So as I move forward with this, I think you can see that there's so many and so wide applications of the use of AI. And I guess some of you are starting to get a bit scared of, okay, so can AI overtake our work? But I will get to that point a little bit later. But let me continue, because in the implementation phase, AI also can help with automatic report preparation, like report compilation, and we need that quite often, and also in multilingual reporting. And we see more and more examples of AI-powered translation for report production in multiple languages. I mean, you cannot always rely on translators or interpreters or have them in-house. So AI can help bridge those gaps. Finally, AI can be very good at quality control phase, like standard enforcement, quality scoring and benchmarking, bias detection, plagiarism detection, statistic validation, and also error detection. So these are areas where different agencies and stakeholders who participated in the semi-structured interviews and also in the survey confirmed that they have used AI, and that has been quite helpful and successful. And now if we move into the quality control phase, I said standard enforcement is one area. You can also look at the error detection, such as anomaly detection, consistency check. Uh, AI can help you also with predictive error detection and syntaxis and semantic analysis. So for example, it can ensure that reports are free of grammatical error, they're logically consistent, and AI can even improve the clarity and readability of evaluation reports. And this is something that we badly need in our work. Statistical validation, we talked about this a little bit before, but sample representativeness can be checked by AI, statistical power analysis, assumption testing, as well as effective science calculation. And AI is also, and this is an old use of AI, but it's powerful in plagiarism detection, especially with the advancement of information technology. Uh, it is, and having large volumes of reports and information available online, sometimes it's very difficult for human readers to identify whether there is plagiarism or not. But AI can help you with cross-document comparison. It can also help you with paraphrase detection, because there are advanced algorithms to detect rephrase content, and it can improve in identifying subtle forms of plagiarism. And this is also very important in our business. And finally, AI is very good at bias detection. So it can look at language bias detection, data bias detection, as well as methodological bias detection. Now, I want to flag one thing here, and again, we're going to revisit that later, but AI, at the end of the day, this is a machine, and we have to think about it in that way. And it does work based on the way it has been trained. So even if AI is good at bias detection, AI also behaves with a certain bias based on the way it was trained. So we have to be very careful in the use of AI when we talk about bias detection and quality control from that perspective. And finally, AI can be quite good in quality scoring and benchmarking. It can do multi-quality assessment. It can help with the trend analysis in evaluation quality, and also it can help you in comparison of evaluation quality against a database of previous evaluations as well, and providing context for the quality assessment and identifying areas of improvement. So AI, as you can see, can be a very helpful tool in the implementation phase and in the quality control phase. But finally, AI can really help you in the use and dissemination phase. And this is another very crucial role of the use of artificial intelligence. So I'll briefly go through the synthesis of evaluation results, what AI can do, knowledge management, reporting and dissemination, also impact tracking and feedback loop, and interactive data visualization. These were like the 5 core areas that the study identified. So synthesis of evaluation results, where can AI help us? It can help with the meta-analysis, like sophisticated analysis across multiple evaluation report, identification of common themes, trends, pattern, comprehensive understanding of the program effectiveness. Again, it can help with trend analysis, cross-sectoral insight, and also contextual analysis. For example, how different contextual factors influence the program outcomes, and understanding what works, where it works, and why it works. On the knowledge management side, AI is very good at intelligent indexing and tagging, and this can be quite a tedious work when this is done normally, but you would use probably an assistant to help you with this sometimes, but AI can help with this work. It can also help with automatic literature reviews. And this is especially powerful when we talk about rapid comprehensive literature reviews of passive evaluations. It is good in personalizing knowledge retrieval, like provision of personalized recommendations based on users' role, interests, or current project. And also it is very good at the creation and maintenance of dynamic knowledge bases and their update and linking findings across different evaluations. Now, AI is also good at tailored reporting and disseminations like audience segmentation, context customization. I think we all know how important that particular is when we work with different audiences and the need to generate quite different reports depending on the audience we want to address. The multi-format content generation is another thing AI is good at, and also the multilingual dissemination. Again, not all of us speak many different languages, and our stakeholders may speak a rare language, and well, this is where AI can really help with. Uh, Data visualization is another area where AI has proved to be extremely powerful. Uh, Dynamic dashboards is one area where we have seen a lot of success and very good example, but also predictive visualization, like generation of visualization showing past, present, and predicted future trend, and also natural language querying, like enabling users to explore evaluation data using natural language queries and making data more accessible to non-technical stakeholders. And the last area as part of the use and dissemination phase was the impact tracking and the feedback loop, because we want to understand at the end of the day, what was the impact of the work that we do as evaluators? And what's the uptake of the findings? What is the uptake of the learnings? And AI can help us in citation and usage tracking. It can help us in the sentiment analysis, and also it can help in implementation monitoring, right? Track the implementation of evaluation recommendations across programs and contests, and also assess the practical impacts of the evaluation findings. And this can provide us with good insights of what was the use of the work that we have done, and what was the final impact of the evaluation that we had. So with all of this, I think now I managed to convince some of you that probably all of us will be out of work within the next 5 to 10 years. No, this is a joke. I don't think that we are going to be out of work that soon, because despite my efforts to convince you how powerful and useful AI is in the past 20 minutes, actually, we have to be aware that there are various risks that accompany the use of AI. And the report look into those risks as well as the mitigation strategies that can be applied. And I think this is a very important point to keep in mind as we move forward with the use of AI. So let's look at the risk and the challenges that we have first. Uh, we have to be very much aware that there are technical challenges associated with the use of AI. And these challenges are linked to the data quality, the bias issues as well. I mentioned about that AI is as good as you manage to train it. And AI provides outputs based on the way it was trained. And when you train an AI, even involuntary, you introduce certain biases. So this is something that you need to deal with. Also, there are the issues with accuracy and reliability concern, because we have seen a lot of evidence that information or outputs that are generated by AI are not always accurate. You still need to go and check what AI has provided to you. And sometimes not all the outputs are reliable. So this basically talks about the need for human supervision in the work. Um, there are also like scalability and performance limitations linked to the use of AI. So we have to think about this as we move forward. Now, one issue that has been coming across over and over again is the ethical consideration. So we have to think about the privacy and the data protection. And I'm sure you have all heard about issues of what happens to the data that you input into a particular AI tool. Where is that data stored? Who has access to that data? And sometimes you have black boxes and you actually don't know what is happening to the data. And this has been an issue that has been coming across over and over again. There is also the consent issues, the transparency issues, uh, the fairness and the non-discrimination issues, and also the accountability and responsibility issue. And I'll just pick up the fairness and non-discrimination as this is linked again to the bias. So if your outputs are biased, eventually they may not be fair, and they may include some discrimination aspects. So this is something that you really need to keep in mind as you move forward. Now, AI is a relatively new field, and we have to think about the operational hurdles that come with it. And there are, and there are going to be major skill gaps and capacity gaps. I have been to a recent evaluation conference where one of the questions that was coming was, okay, how to train my other colleagues in the use of AI? What kind of skills we need? And not everybody in the evaluation community has the necessary skills to actually apply AI tools. So there is a major need for capacity building in that field. AI does not come for free. So the cost allocation, resource allocations, there was this major fear that organizations that have more funding resources would actually be able to use AI more efficiently. So this is going to create a big gap. There are also the change management difficulties. And one thing that I keep on repeating, and you hear about it over and over today, is the quality control and also the oversight challenges. Is the organization using the AI, or is the evaluator using AI able to implement proper quality control and oversight measures? There are strategic risks like over-reliance on technology, because that if you rely too much on the technology, again, you may not be able to get the best outputs. And then that links to stakeholder trust and acceptance issues. Ethical use of predictive insights is also another challenge that we have on the strategic side. And also, there are long-term sustainability concerns associated with the use of AI. How long can we use that, and how can we best use it? And finally, there are the methodological challenges: understanding contextual limitations, the qualitative data analysis complexities, how good AI is at that, uh, the risk of methodological rigidity. As AI is a machine, and as I said, it does what it is trained to do, sometimes it may become overly rigid in a methodology that is proposed. And also, we have to think about how good AI is in handling complex and emergent phenomena. So there are a couple of mitigation strategies. I'll go quickly through those and we can talk more about this. But some of the things that came as part of the study were developing robust ethical guidelines, conducting capacity building and training, ensuring data quality and bias detection, implementing human oversight, promoting transparency and stakeholder engagement, continuous monitoring and evaluation of AI systems, also developing context-aware and flexible AI system, implementing strong data privacy and security protocol, and engaging in collaborative AI development. These were just examples of strategies that we thought that can address some of the risks. And based on that, uh, the study came up with a set of recommendations of what can be done in climate change program evaluations and how we can move forward with that. And these are basically the recommendations that came from the study for the 4 funds. So there are 4 main areas on the way ahead. First of all, there is a need for a strategic approach in the use of AI, because this is one thing that we've been asked quite often while the study was being conducted. Okay, what do we do next? And we basically have to think about very gradual, critical, and responsible AI adoption. So we have to understand what really works well and what does not, and what exactly are the needs. So it's important to start with simple applications and then progress to more complex tasks. And for that reason, it's important to develop tailored AI application for evaluation needs, and also foster a culture of experimentation and innovation, because maybe not all applications of AI will use, but you still have to try it and see what works best. And it's important to have a continuous assessment of AI impact and value added. So you need to create this kind of a learning loop and to understand what is the best way to move forward. On the governance side, it's important, and this was one of the reasons that I mentioned a while ago, it's important to develop AI governance frameworks and also ethical guidelines. It's important to establish protocols for data privacy and security. Think about risk assessment procedures and put them in place. Also, we ensure that there is transparency in the use of AI within evaluation. So when you use AI in a particular evaluative work, you need to state that that was done and also explain when and in what way it was done. And also, it's crucial to have regular ethical reviews of AI systems and outputs. It's important to build capacity. Build capacity inside the organization, build capacity of evaluators, because with the use of AI, a new generation of evaluators is being born, but also uh, evaluators who have not used AI, they have to become comfortable with its use. So it's important to invest in AI skills and training for evaluation staff, promote collaboration between evaluators and AI experts, organize workshops like the workshop today and knowledge sharing session, and also develop AI literacy across all levels of the organization. One idea that also appeared was to have also this team of AI champions within the organization who can spearhead that agenda and move it forward. And when you implement applications across the organization and evaluative work, it's important to conduct AI readiness assessment. See like what the gaps are and what will be the best approach to do that. Implement pilot projects with clear objectives, develop AI-assisted evaluation toolkits, look into validation frameworks for AI outputs, and also create feedback loops for continuous improvement. So the climate funds got this very clear recommendations coming from the study. And one was to maintain and institutionalize an AI joint working group. We already had a steering committee overseeing that study, and the recommendations was basically to continue with that joint working group, look into the pilots, establish validation protocols, develop AI guidelines, and also, this is very important, create an AI experience log so we can see what has worked, what has not worked, and that will make it easier to share experiences across the 4 funds. And also come up with an AI integration roadmap that will cover the next 1 to 2 years. Uh, in terms of a long-term strategy, it's crucial to look into a joint AI governance framework that can be applied across the funds, have a comprehensive validation framework, also invest in AI capacity building. I think this is a very important element. But also we need to think as funds how to strengthen our data infrastructure, look at what evaluation toolkits we have, and also how to foster collaboration and knowledge sharing, and develop AI-specific evaluation criteria. I mean, this is something that probably will go back to all of our evaluation policies, but this is something that we have to think about long-term. We have to look into very strong stakeholder engagement as we move forward with the use of AI. We have to continue engaging with external stakeholders, learn from them, and help them learn from us. And as part of that, establishing partnerships with academia and tech companies is crucial. It's important to have an AI communication strategy as well. And finally, implement feedback loops for continuous improvement. And at the end, we should not forget about the ethics of the use of AI and also the sustainability. So we need to prioritize environmental consideration. I think the carbon footprint of use of AI is one of the topics that we see quite often. We need to look into the ethics review process for the application of AI, develop AI ethical guidelines, and also audit the AI systems for biases and ensure that what they generate is really the outputs that we need and they're in line with the ethical guidelines and our internal protocols. So as you can see, there is a lot of work that we have to do and a lot of recommendations, but I will stop here with my presentation. I want to thank everybody for your attention, and I want to hand over the mic back to our wonderful moderator, Debbie. Thank you.
Thank you, Vlad. That was a very rich presentation, and I think you've given us a lot to think about in terms of how AI is applied. What are the risks, and then what are the possible strategic directions that we take going forward. We've also had a wealth of information and some questions in the chat, which I'll come to a bit later. But just one immediate one we've had from Alice, which says, will this study be available? Can we access the study or the report? So maybe if you could just answer that, and then we go into the others. Yeah, thank you, Vlad.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Debbie, and thank you for this question. The answer is yes. The study will be available. We are actually planning to make it available within the next few weeks. So the study is completed. We are just undergoing the process of final graphic design of the report. So it will be made available, I think, on the websites of all the funds. This is something that is going to be a public good and our contribution to the ongoing discussion on the use of AI in evaluations. And also the recording of this webinar, as well as the presentation that I made today, this is also going to be publicly available after the webinar. Thank you.
Super. Thank you, Vlad. Thanks very much for that. And I just also wanted to point out that as you were talking, I think we stimulated quite a lot of interesting ideas from people, lots of questions, but also some resources. And we had I can refer to 2 ideas where people have already used this. So we've got somebody, Miguel, I think from SEI, who says that they've developed an in-house tool using OpenAI and to assess policy documents. And they've used it, for example, to find SDG provisions in the NDCs, indicator by indicator, to assess national development plans, etc. So that's one example of its use. And Scott Chaplow has also referred to work of the International Evaluation Academy, which is using generative AI to support futures thinking through the 3 Horizons initiative. So this is a useful reflection. It's a two-way flow of information exchange, not just the 4 funds putting it out there, but I think stimulating wide discussion and collaborative sharing of knowledge. Yes, so please do look at the chat. There are lots of questions and resources also that people are putting in, and that's very useful. And Vlad, there are some specific questions on this that have come up. I'm going to give you a bit of a break now as I turn to the other panels, but just to flag a couple of things when we get to the QA. I think there was one question from Marco Antonielli who was asking about what can you give us an overview of AI tools that work for different purposes? Is that something that the study is looked at, different types of AI tools, or is that perhaps something for the future to look at? And a related one from Gertz was, how do you prepare AI for these different tasks? Which AI tools should you use for different tasks, and how do you then prepare AI to take on these different tasks? So maybe when we come to the Q&A, Vlad, I might come back to you and see how the study has approached this question, if you have any thoughts on that. But I will pause for now. We've had lots of other interesting questions. We'll come back to that in Q&A. Let me turn now to my wonderful panel. And I'm going to ask a few questions based on three broad typologies. One is the pros and cons of this technology. The second, I will ask a little bit about ethical considerations and quality control, and then I will focus on the implementation issues. So let me start with you first, Anupam. Having heard all of this and the discussion so far, what do you think are the potential benefits of using AI in climate change evaluations? How is this different compared to business as usual approaches to evaluations? And Anupam, if you have any examples from your organization to illustrate how this is happening already, that would be great to hear as well. Thank you.
Debbie, and thank you, Vlad, for a very comprehensive presentation and setting up the stage. So I'll come to Debbie's question on the pros and cons and how we have been using AI. So at the Jeff Independent Evaluation Office, we have been using AI for almost more than a decade. So there's a subset of AI which is known as machine learning. We started using it for change detection to see what has changed in light of the interventions. So for climate mitigation, adaptation, also for other areas of environmental interventions. And what we have been using a lot is the satellite data. And over the last, I would say, 30, 40 years, there's phenomenal amount of data that have come from satellites, and they help us understand the changes at the intervention sites, but also around the world, and specifically from evaluation perspective in light of the intervention, or even for relevance question, whether the interventions are at the right places or not. The issue with dealing with humongous amount of data, or the big data, as they say, and satellite data is a big data, is that the more you have it, the less you can do with it. And this is where AI is very, very helpful, because it helps us understand the changes over time using the satellite imagery in a very resource efficient way. And some of the recent development in satellite tools, or satellite analytics have been powered by AI. So we have leveraged this, and we continue to do so. It's only got more efficient in the light of more recent subset of AI, that is the generative AI. So this is one area where we have really leveraged AI for a long time, but we have also been using it for other areas. For instance, for qualitative work, for for writing reports or helping us with chores, even basic. I will just give you more practical examples here. For instance, if you want a list of all the acronyms that you have in a report, it just takes few seconds or a minute to do that with AI. Just imagine doing it manually. Of course, you have to cross-check, but it's quite efficient at doing the chores. Writing codes, we used to spend a lot of time, even for simple regressions. If you are using R or Python, it's become much more efficient. It will help you write efficient code. Also, help you with better visualization options. And lately, we have also started using it for our knowledge management and communication tools. So a lot of videos and the photos are uh, being generated or are being helped by AI tools, even the voiceover, language or translation. So if you want to translate your transcript into multiple languages or a questionnaire in multiple languages, so it's become a commonplace without us even knowing. I mean, all our emails, all our tools have integrated AI. So it's just that we don't see it. The chores are the same, but now it's being powered by AI, and that's why most of the time we don't realize that they're already running through AI. So it's kind of all pervasive, and we continue to work on it and use it for various evaluation tasks, but also to gain insights and more efficiently, and also to venture into areas that we wouldn't have because of time and resource constraints. So all those are, I would say, being helped and assisted by AI. So I'll just stop here,
Thank
Debbie.
you.
But
Yeah, thanks, Anupam. That's really great to hear what the Jeff is doing, Jeff IU is doing on this. Mike, same question to you. What are you doing at SIF, and where do you see the benefits? How is this different compared to business as usual approaches?
Thanks, Debbie. Thanks all for being here. Some great discussion going on in the chat, and I'll try to pick up on a little bit of it. I think what is different from business as usual, I think that development evaluations have always dealt with issues of complexity, of contestation, of contextuality, of emergent approaches. And so what we're seeing in the kind of climate space is trying to understand, well, what does AI mean as we evaluate within these kinds of situations? So maybe just to pick up on a couple of those points. The one around complexity, I think that already there have been a number of comments around the ability of AI to work with very complex. We refer to kind of data sets, as Marco pointed out. The AI tends to be better with text at the moment than hard numbers, but I think that's changing incredibly fast. And so I don't think that will be a comment that we'll be making in a year or two from now. So I think that it is the ability of AI to work across these complex data sets. So, for example, the Climate Investment Funds has 16 years of evaluations of case studies, and it's incredibly useful as we were developing our new strategy to use AI to look across all of those studies to start to synthesize out what are some common trends that we see coming through, what are common recommendations, what would that mean for strategy. So we can deal with quite big and complex data sets. The trick to remember, though, is that in this field of climate, there's an enormous amount of contestation. So there are different communities, they have different interests, and as they put forward those different interests, they may or may not be advocating for different ways of addressing the climate issues. And we need to recognize that AI, as Vlad said, is only as good as the data that it's been trained on. So if it's been trained on predominantly Western and predominantly written forms of data, then it's going to reflect those, and it's going to ignore and marginalize things like indigenous communities, indigenous people, local communities, and often non-written verbal understandings of their space and the way that the world works. And so we need to be very critical about what data is going in, what it's drawing on, what the AI has been trained on, and therefore whose kinds of interests it may support as it puts forward various recommendations. And we need to be very careful that we don't reinforce systemic inequalities or overlook marginalized perspectives. Very quickly, I think that these issues are also emergent. In other words, they're changing very rapidly over time. And so we're needing to look at historic data, certainly, but we're also needing to imagine preferred futures. So what is it that we as human beings want as we move into the future and address these climate issues? And I think that is a uniquely human activity. We need to say that AI can support and inform it, but ultimately as humans, we need to decide what it is that we would like to see in our world, decide on preferred futures and start working towards them. And I think that is perhaps a weakness of AI. If we expect AI to tell us how we should live in the future, then I think that we're going to make a serious mistake. So yeah, but I think that I'll leave it there for a bit. Lots to pick up on some of the ethics and some of the other comments in the chat. Thanks, Debbie.
Excellent. Thank you, Mike. And I think, the point that you made on not letting AI take too much control about our preferred future is, I think, a really important one. We're seeing similar comments come up in the chat. Nancy's mentioned misinformation, disinformation as one of the top risks. And, the risk of AI replacing critical thinking skills. Mark has raised a question about constrained evaluation budgets. So obviously, there's a lot of thinking about the potential risks. I'd like to turn to Martin and Vlad and ask you in turn, do you see any potential, what's your view on the potential pitfalls or risks of relying too heavily on AI for climate policy, particularly for climate policy decisions? And how do you think we can get around some of this? How do we mitigate these risks? Maybe Martin, you first and then Vlad. Yeah, go ahead, Martin.
Thank you, Debbie, for the opportunity, and it's a real privilege to be here alongside Vlad and Pam, Mike. And I think the starting point on that question is really the evaluation function and about how AI can enhance trust in the evaluation function and the evaluation process and not undermine it. So AI models are complex, they're opaque, they can easily be seen as black box models. And this can lead to a lack of transparency and subsequently a lack of accountability for decisions that may be made on such models. So using AI solely to guide decisions can make decision making problematic, and it could also be misinterpreted as an attempt to sort of blur internal processes or not operate transparency. So how can we ensure transparency and accountability in the use of AI? And that kind of brings us to openness. So as evaluators, we need to be aware of the perceived unfairness and opaqueness that could arise from using AI tools in a manner that's not transparent. And we need to make conscious efforts and deliberate efforts to overcome this. So, for example, we could provide explainer libraries alongside briefings or reports, just to explain the model's working and so that readers can understand that. Another way to add or enhance openness is to allow different eyes to peer review the AI tool output, and also to have that assessed in that way. And this can help to ensure the models are better understood and increase the likelihood of sort of broader acceptance of the use of AI in different stages of the evaluation process. And that brings us to credibility, really. So as evaluators, we all go through a series of stages in the evaluation process. So we select an approach, we select our evaluation questions, the methodology, the choice of methods, form of analysis. Our evaluative judgment is pivotal, and also the form of reporting. And AI tools can play a role in each of these stages, but as we've seen in the chat and as we've covered already, evaluative evidence needs to be based on much more. So the art of evaluation, it needs to include triangulation between different data sources, ground truthing, allowing participants an early view and preemptive engagement with evaluation findings to help interpret that data. Also, just to rely on expert judgment, and also to be able to read between the lines when two pieces of evaluative evidence or three pieces of evaluative evidence are contradictory. Understanding how to read between those lines, to dig deeper, to find out where the tensions are and to understand that more clearly. And that's very much a case of using the full smorgasbord of evaluation approaches, not simply relying on AI output. And that brings me to my last point, and I'll just wrap up. I'm sure Vlad can take this much further. But just the last point, just on replicability. So, in all forms of evaluation, we typically complete a protocol or an approach paper which details the evaluation process that we're going to go through. And this allows course correction. We socialize the approach paper. It keeps us honest in terms of the questions we're seeking to answer, and it makes sure that we do what we said we're going to do. It also means that it's a template if we need to revisit that particular evaluation question. So, for example, protocols for systematic reviews offer a template for others to emulate and recreate findings. How can we tackle an approach paper or protocol when we use AI, generative AI? So, when we use these tools, we need to be transparent and explain precisely the steps of the evaluation process we've used for AI, and also how the text was, if we are using it solely for text, was verified or cross-checked or validated. And a good analogy here is the use of sort of data extraction forms for systematic reviews or for data sets. So to ensure consistency, different reviewers, at least 2 reviewers, could independently review the paragraphs of text and only accept those when there's, say, for example, 90% consistency in how the reviewers are assessing the text, and a third-party arbiter could resolve any outstanding disagreements. So that then puts a framework around how the output's been included or excluded, if you like, and that helps with replicability. And in that sense, it helps us become more accountable in our use of AI and more open. Back to you, Debbie, or over to Vlad.
Martin, thanks for those great insights. Vlad, what's your thinking on this issue? The same question to you.
Thank you, Debbie. Well, I would start probably with a statement I make often when we talk about AI, that we need to think about AI as a junior analyst or an intern that you have in your office. AI can help with certain tasks, but you cannot be over reliant to it. And we have to keep that in mind whenever we talk about use of AI for any policy decisions. I think policy decisions and policy recommendations, they have to be made by humans. AI can help you collect the information, collect the data, help with some of the analysis, but at the end of the day, you really need to use your human brain to go through all of those outputs and understand what is the best. So this goes very closely to what Mike was saying, that we are those who have to select our future. And it is the same that we are those who have to make the policy decision. One thing that came in the newspapers, in the news a few months ago, was about a case of AI hallucinations. And this is something that many of us have probably heard. When AI generates an outcome which is completely detached from the reality. And there are cases like that. So we should not be overly reliant on the use of AI tools when we make policy decisions. So my personal recommendation, my personal view is to have clarity on where exactly we think that AI can help us. We are the areas where it can optimize our work, and which are the areas where we need to be there. And based on that, establish like a clear protocol, how we make decisions and how we conduct evaluations and how we make recommendations based on inputs that we have received from AI. But we should never allow, at least at the current stage, for AI to overtake the work that we do. Otherwise, we may end up into this Terminator world that many of us have seen in the movies years ago, which is not the world that we want to have. Thank you.
Vlad, and Vlad, I wondered if you also would take this opportunity to respond to the question that was asked earlier, about the different, now let me just frame that question. So there's a question on really, has the scoping study really thought about AI tools that can work to purposes like prepare handling these different tasks. Something that the study is looked at or a subsequent phase of the study might look at? Vlad, you're on mute.
Thank you, Debbie, and apologies for this. Yeah, and thank you for this question. So the study on purpose did not look into some specific tools and did not recommend the specific tools at this stage. So it was a scoping study to look at what the experiences of the different organizations were. Now, we are planning to move through with some pilots in the next phase of this study and see how different tools can be applied and what can be the outcomes of the use of those tools. But the study itself did not make any recommendations, oh, you have to use this particular tool for this task. One common application that was coming through the discussion, of course, that was use of various forms of ChatGPT-like software, AI. And AI is not software, so it's an AI model. And even inside the World Bank, we have like an in-house version of ChatGPT, but this is something that we have seen quite often used, especially when it comes down to summary of information, extraction of information, design of extraction of trends, etc. So this can be one thing that can be used, and it's quite powerful. You also have, for example, voice recognition tools that can be used as part of interviews, and you can get a transcript based on that, and then transcript can be analyzed and summarized. So AudioPen, for example, is one of these, but I think even tools like Zoom or WebEx, they already have this type of built-in AI tools. So there are also tools that help with extraction of information from video images, and they're also there. But as I said, the study on purpose decided not to list any of these tools at this stage, also because we didn't want to bring the discussion in one particular direction or not at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Vlad. Thanks for that answer. I'd like to shift things slightly. So, Mike, can I turn to you and ask you? I mean, one of the things that worries me slightly is about asymmetry in technological capabilities across the world. How, what's your view on how AI can be used effectively across regions with varying levels of technological infrastructure? Is there a risk that some of this asymmetry may exclude certain vulnerable groups or actually add to the problem of global inequality? How do we get around this, Mike?
Thanks, Debbie. Yeah, I think it's definitely a risk. If knowledge is often power, and AI has the ability to generate enormous amounts of knowledge, and yet it requires access, then of course we can kind of shift power relations. And then of course the point that we've made already is that the AI will reflect recommendations, suggestions based on the kind of work that it's been trained on. And so there is a very real risk of kind of perpetuating existing asymmetries in power. So I think that those risks are relatively well known. The trick, I suppose, and a number of comments have come up in the chat, is to start to really support people. So there's some support around building technical skills. How do we work with AI? And the more that we build those skills across diverse groups, the better able to address some of those asymmetries we are. But there's a very kind of strong need to develop critical and ethical thinking. And I think Nancy's made this point a couple of times in the chat already, is that it's not just around the data that we're working with and synthesizing. It's around how do we bring a kind of critical orientation to that, whose interests are served, and what happens when those interests are served. In other words, the kind of critical and ethical thinking. I think that we also need to support people to shift from a kind of data analysis to insight synthesis. And so as evaluators, as AI helps us to do this data analysis much more quickly, we can use the extra time that is made available to us to start to think through, well, what do those insights mean? And who should start to act on those insights, because that's really what will change the world and will change the kind of power that is there. And it's fantastic to see colleagues like Kidanwa and Kada from the African Development Bank as part of the group asking questions about these. Whose responsibility will it be to implement some of these suggestions? And really, I think a recognition that we will need to work together in order to address some of the asymmetries of power, to take the recommendations, to think about them critically, and then to socialize them. Another point that Nancy made is that we really need to communicate and socialize the kinds of carefully thought through but AI supported recommendations, and then to say, well, what changes will they bring about in the world, and the kinds of issues of power and privilege, and how then do we implement those recommendations together. So it's a socialization process, a communication process of the findings, and we've always had this issue with evaluations. We can't just assume that having produced a report that it will kind of be acted on. We need to build coalitions, groups of the willing to kind of bring about these shifts in power structures. So certainly I think that AI in itself has the potential to reinforce asymmetries, but it also, if we bring a critical orientation and we communicate and we work together with people who have a kind of ethical orientation, that we also have the potential to, I think, use it to help us to address some of the issues that we see in the world. Thanks, Debbie.
Mike, thank you, Mike. Martin, can I ask you the same question? And what's your take on this?
It's critical, especially in a fund like the Green Climate Fund, because we have two co-chairs, a developed co-chair and developing country co-chair, and the key part of the evaluation process is the presentation of our evaluation reports to the board, and making sure that all the stakeholders at the board level, all of the board members and the alternates, the advisors, as well as the independent observers to the board, are fully on board. And like Mike says, it's very much a case of ensuring uptake and utilization, and that's based on a solid understanding of the evaluation recommendations, but also how we got to those recommendations. And this is the importance of laying out, like we mentioned earlier, a very clear approach to the evaluation, and also then holding ourselves accountable by doing that, and including within our evaluation reports how we're utilizing AI, and how we have the particular quality control features around AI are key, so that all stakeholders can fully understand the input that's been taken and how that's been integrated in the report. So, for example, all stakeholders, when understanding an evaluation, and stakeholders with the Green Climate Fund are highly diverse, and this involves including actors in sort of socializing the evaluation at inception, sort of collaborating in the evaluation, participating as respondents in the evaluation, but then also offering feedback on the draft evaluation report. And when we turn to AI, it's very much a case of weaving AI and the use of AI tools into that process. So in terms of getting stakeholders' input in planning the use of AI tools, getting stakeholder input in terms of collaborating in terms of how we use AI tools, and also making sure that all stakeholders fully understand how the AI output has supported and enhanced the evaluation function. And it's really critical, like Mike said much more eloquently than I'm managing to. It's really around communicating this to make sure that all are fully all can unpack the black box. Because without doing that, we risk undermining some of the important work that we all seek to complete.
Thanks for that, Martin. Just talking about the black box, even the black box needs to be powered. And I can see that there's been some discussion between David and Anupam on energy use aspect and looking at some of the sort of carbon footprint of AI. And I just wondered, Anupam, you've already responded in the chat, but would you mind talking a little bit about the energy usage or carbon footprint from the use of generative AIs like ChatGPT? How do we get around that issue?
Tavi, for the question, and I think it's a very critical issue, especially around the generative AI, because the compute requirements are very, very high. You need a lot of GPU hours to train these models, and they cost a lot, but also take a lot of energy, not only in running the machines, but also producing those chips and other computational infrastructure. And just comparing us, even when we started having the typical web search, then also there was a lot of debate about its energy usage, and now we are at a stage where this is being raised again. So depending on what model you use, the difference between a single query or simple search and I would say AI query could be 10 to 50 times and even more, depending on what you are querying. So we all have to be cognizant of this fact. So do you want 10 simple search query, or you want to use one AI query? That's the question we all have to ask. But also it's same with other products. I mean, we use all kind of unsustainable products, and we need to ask this question time and again to ourselves. And I think the key lies in educating ourselves and educating our peers and colleagues in terms of how much energy does it take. But I'm an optimist, and I think, someone mentioned a deep seek, and I think there's a silver lining here, because as the models get trained and they become more efficient, and as there are better chips to train these models, the energy requirement will go down. We also have to see the opportunity that AI can play in the energy transition. So having better data analytics in terms of saving energy in various sectors, because in IT sectors, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, anyone from the mitigation sector, 2 to 6% is what the technology sector contributes to the climate change. So I think the analytics or AI-based analytics holds a lot of promise in helping us identify the opportunities in increasing the energy efficiency in not many industrial sector, and helping us ultimately deal with the climate change mitigation and adaptation. So I'll just stop here. I think this is a great question, and we all have to think about every time we press that query button on any of the AI tool that we use.
Thank you, Anupam, for that. And just in the interest of time, I'm going to ask one question before I go to some Q&A. So Vlad, this last one in this round is for you. We've touched upon skills and capacities that evaluators need. I mean, could you maybe tell us a little bit of your thinking on what capacities will we need as evaluators to deal with AI? Should we all be rushing out to get new skills, or what's your advice on this?
Yeah, thank you, Debbie. And it's a very important question, and this is something that came out of the study, the capacity building needs and need to upgrade our capacity. So my answer is yes, we actually have to rush and build some new skills, and these skills consist of, number one, understanding what AI is, I would say this is kind of the basis. Uh, Understand how AI tools can be used, what can be done and what cannot be done, and then the practical experience of using tools in order to help our evaluative work. So I would, in some cases, it starts with some basic AI literacy because I know of colleagues who have one-on-one experience with AI, and I think most of us were at this one-on-one level a few years ago. One of the problems, however, with capacity building, and this is linked to ethical considerations and also equality, is uh, to what extent evaluators and organizations, I would put as a bigger question, can spend time and resources to train their staff. So the skills are needed, but this means that you need to allocate additional time and resources for that. And this is an area where we can have some disbalances that will occur in the evaluation community. So to me, it is crucial that we actually emphasize this capacity building work and help the broader community become friends with AI, become knowledgeable of AI, and become responsible users of AI. So the capacity building should really focus on that particular side. I would even compare it to learning how to drive a car. So you basically have to go listen to some lecture, then get inside the car and learn how to navigate on the road. And it is the same with AI. And I'll go back to the example I also gave in the during the presentation that I made earlier today. When I was attending a conference a few months ago, a lot of the participants there said, okay, we're very happy to learn about AI because we have never done anything with it. And one thing that a lot of the participants also shared there was kind of fear from some of the established evaluators to also engage with AI. And I think the capacity building work should also um, aim at overcoming that fear and helping understand that AI can be your friend, somebody who can help you if you know how exactly to use it and how to generate outcomes that you need to help you, your work. I don't know whether that answered your question, but this is more or less how I see it from my side. Thank you.
Thank you, Vlad. Thanks for that. In the interest of time, I'm probably going to throw out two questions that I had from the chat. The first is from Tinashe, who asks, what mechanisms can be established to ensure the long-term sustainability and adaptability of AI tools in climate evaluations as technologies evolve? And Anupam's already referred to DeepSeek and other things. So who would like to take that? Maybe Anupam, would you like to try and respond to that one? What mechanisms can be established to ensure the long-term sustainability and adaptability of AI tools in climate evaluations, particularly as technologies evolve?
I think that's a very critical question. And I would say that we have to take all these development as evaluator or evaluators, we have to see it as a dynamic learning process. So we cannot just think of it as one-off event or one-off development. And as long as we keep up with the learning process, because every other day you will have a new algorithm, new GPT, and the key here for sustainability is to keep learning and keep upgrading our skills. And with these kind of rapid development, there is much more need. And as evaluators and as institutions that conduct and manage evaluations, I think we need to have systems in place. And Vlad mentioned about capacity building, and Mike also mentioned why this is important. So I think we need to institutionalize some of these learnings and not just leave it up to the evaluators to learn it on their own. I think the institutions can play a very important role in helping evaluators upgrade their skills and keep upgrading the skills, also sharing what works and what doesn't, because there's not much evidence. And being in evaluation field, we are always looking for evidence. So what is the evidence of its efficacy in various kinds of evaluations or various kind of evaluation processes? So we need to keep sharing and experimenting and keep sharing. So iteratively, we need to do this so that we make everyone aware of what works and what doesn't, and what are the challenges, how do we deal with it, how do we mitigate. So I see it as a very dynamic learning process and iterative process. So I'll just stop here. I think that will ensure sustainability. There is no other way out because it's a very dynamic and fast and rapid moving field.
Thank you, Anupam. I'm going to throw the next question at you, Martin. And this is from Samraj, who asks, how do we convince concerned stakeholders that AI is used as a decision support tool and not as a decision tool to avoid outright rejection?
Thank you, Debbie, for the opportunity, and thank you very much for the question. I think just to segue from the earlier response, I think if we think about quality control with AI, and we can perhaps use an analogy from how we communicate uncertainties when we use other forms of data. So, for example, when we draw a sample, we use confidence intervals to show the degree to which the sample mean differs from the true population mean, and we know we put standard deviations around that, and we know there's roughly a 90% chance the sample mean lies within 2 standard deviations from the true population mean. If we were able to apply the same principle to the AI output, or at least have a proxy way of putting confidence intervals around AI output, that could also help with some of the quality control concerns. A further example was when we do systematic reviews, we use critical appraisal scorecards to assess primary studies. So we look at the study design, confounding factors, intervention discrepancies, missing data, bias in outcomes, bias in reporting, so forth. And so then we rate the primary studies in terms of low, moderate, high critical risk of bias, and this is done by particular independent reviewers. There is potential for that kind of quality control to be transposed into AI output, not in an identical manner, but just using lessons from evaluative work from our toolbox. You know, we draw samples, we do systematic reviews, we can apply some of the quality control aspects from our everyday evaluative work to the AI output, and see how this may help to answer some of those questions. But thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Mike. Vlad, can I turn to you? There was a question from Abu Bakr, who asks, in some cases, some of the research firms treat AI-generated work as a plagiarism. What's your take on that one?
Okay, that's a very interesting question, because I was saying early in the presentation that actually AI can be used as a tool to detect plagiarism, actually. The answer, there is no straightforward answer here. So AI can generate reports for you. AI can generate various outputs for you. And if you do not carefully guide it, what output you want to have generated, you may end up actually being accused of plagiarism. Now, one example I can give you is that you ask for a summary of particular information, and you get the black box. And out of the black box, you get the report that you want, and without any references there. And if you bring that report to the outside world, somebody very easily can accuse you of plagiarism. So what has been happening recently, and there's some good examples of that. You actually instruct AI to provide you with references to all the sources that were used in the report. And I think that is one way actually to deal with any accusations that what you have generated is plagiarism, and also try to uphold to the standards that are accepted in the industry when you produce any publication. So I believe this is one way to go around this, and it's really a good example of good use and not that good use of AI for one particular situation. But I wouldn't say that anything generated by AI can be automatically considered as plagiarism, because I see also a lot of institutions where actually the use of AI is being recommended in a responsible manner. So as long as we provide all the sources of information, all the quotations, that should be something that is taken care of. This is my take on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Vlad. And Mike, very briefly, Peter has asked a question about, who will be the real owner of the findings of work used by AI and its recommendations? Is it the evaluator who used it, AI itself, or those who developed and operationalized the tool? Mike, very quick response from you on that. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that we need to acknowledge that any recommendations have real world implications. So we work in institutions that have a fair amount of influence. We often have access to quite large amounts of funding and other resources. And in our evaluations, we put forward recommendations. We need to think very carefully about those recommendations. And Vlad's made the point of AI hallucinating. It may put forward particular perspectives that are already well entrenched. And as evaluators, that is our work, is to bring a critical eye to those recommendations and to think through what will the implications be in the real world, and is this the kind of world that we want to create through these recommendations. And so I think that it is important to say that we can't kind of say, well, AI bears the responsibility for these recommendations and the impact that they will have. We as human beings and evaluators have to take that responsibility. So we need to take it seriously, and I think that that's why there is so much discussion around developing the critical ability of evaluators as they use the report, and developing ethical frameworks on how we use AI to generate recommendations, suggestions, insights. Thanks, Debbie.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you. One of the things we asked at the beginning of this session is, does anyone have any ideas on, how do we take this work forward? And I've seen some ideas coming up in the chat, but I think one idea that's come up is we could establish an AI community of practice across different institutions, countries, contributor countries, CSOs, private sector, academia, etc. So that's one suggestion. But if others have other suggestions, please do put them in the chat or get back in touch with us. We've got 2 minutes to the end of this session, and I'd like to thank everybody for being here with us through this session, a very interactive, engaging session. But before we close, I just want to ask my panelists if they could just summarize whatever they want to say, one sentence from each of you. Let me start with you, Martin.
Thank you, Debbie. So DeepSeek is showing true competition within AI, and we've moved from sort of innovation, proof of concept, pilots, scale up and replication, now to a situation where we have AI tools using less energy with fewer resources, with very elegant models, improving efficiency, and this will only benefit all of our work in the long run. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. Mike, one sentence from you.
Yeah, I think what we've seen is the enormous potential of AI. At the same time, I think we've also seen some of its limitations in terms of data biases, ethical concerns, and a real need for human oversight and insight as we seek to create the future that we want, and not one that we kind of allow AI to determine for us. And yeah, very exciting to be part of this ongoing development. Thanks, Debbie.
Thank you, Mike. Vlad?
Thank you, Debbie. I would say that despite all the potential that AI has, we have to be very careful on how we use it. But at the same time, we shouldn't be afraid. So we have to be cautious users, and we have to embrace the use of AI and move it forward. And I think the discussion today really show that there are a lot of things we can do together. So we just have to move in that direction and also be part of this continuous learning on how to use it and how to make it our good friend. Thank you.
Thank you, Vlad. And Anupam, final word to you.
Thanks, Debbie. So I would say that as evaluators and development practitioners, we have to see it as a dynamic learning process, and we should see any technological innovation as a companion and as a friend to gather robust evaluative evidence more efficiently to help inform the policy decisions and even to influence those while being diligent and and taking a risk-based approach to deal with the challenges that we face while using them. So thank you for the question again.
Great. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for an insightful session, as Rafiq has summed it up. And let's continue to keep this conversation alive.